Hey YouTubers, welcome to Development, and today I'm doing a quick review on Generation Iron 2. I'm actually coming at a loss as to whether I did a review on the first film or not. Basically, to give you a rundown, the first Generation Iron was a sort of homage or even a sequel to the original Pumping Iron from the 70s, which obviously starred guys like Lou Ferrigno, Arnold Schwarzenegger, and it followed the track of the, I want to say 1977 Mr. Olympia competition. And then Generation Iron came out in, I want to say like 2013 or 14, and it followed the track of that year's Mr. Olympia, where the two main guys were basically Phil Heath and Kai Green. It was good. It was actually really good. The second one came out, I want to say about 2 weeks ago now. I've been a little lax on actually getting this video out, so I apologize, but here it is. And it kind of left me going meh. The first one was really good. There was a lot of, it was similar to the first one in that it was a docudrama. There was some manufactured tension you could see, lots of strong opinions, and lots of things that were explored that weren't necessarily explored in the first one. You know, they touched on steroid use and things like that. And it was mainly about just bodybuilding in general, and specifically the Mr. Olympia competition of that year, much like the original Pumping Iron. Now, the second one, he went a bit of a different direction with it. The director, Vlad Yudin, he went a bit of a different direction, and he decided that he wanted to explore all the facets of bodybuilding, in that there's a huge online community now, obviously through things like YouTube and Instagram, guys like Colm van Moger and Rich Piana on YouTube, Colm on Instagram. I mean, they're huge on these two platforms. Even though neither one of them is a top-level competitor, they have this huge fan base, and he wanted to sort of explore that idea. It was a good idea, I think, and I think even the execution was good. It just really didn't come out as interesting as I think he would have hoped. Part of the reason that the first one was so successful, in my opinion, was that the first one followed pro bodybuilders 100%. I mean, you had guys like Ben Pakulski in it, obviously Phil Heath, Kai Green, Dexter Jackson. You at least got to see him. You know, there was a lot of guys you saw, but they didn't actually talk, you know. Roly Winkler. And they didn't really do that this time. I mean, basically the top level pros they had were Hidetada Yamagishi, I think is how you say his name. He was in it, and he was working with, I want to say her name is, I can't recall her name, but she was Miss Olympia like 8 years in a row or something like that. And they explored the idea of her trying to figure out where she's going to go with her career, because female bodybuilding no longer exists. And so she's trying to figure out what she's going to do with her career, and they explore that a little bit, and her and Hide being together now. You know, they still had Kai Green in it, and he did a little bit of talking, but he's really not even doing competitions so much anymore. He won the Arnold Classic, but he's really not doing the Olympia. He hasn't done it for, as far as I know, 2 years at least. They were exploring the idea that he still has a huge following. I think he still has the most online followers of any IFBB pro, which is amazing. Given that he's not actually won the Mr. Olympia title, you know, still coveted as the #1 title in the sport. So it's an interesting thing to sort of go through, but the first movie seemed, I guess it seemed a little more put together, is the best way to put it. You know, they had they had Mickey Rourke narrating the thing, which is that's just star power in and of itself, which is really cool. And then they have these incredible interviews with so many different pros, following quite a few different people. And I guess the best way to put it is, to me, they didn't really explore things as much as they should have or could have. It sort of seemed like they touched the surface of like Rich Piana's life. I mean, I don't feel like they really dove deep in and showed the rabid fan base that this guy has. I mean, Rich Piana's fan base is just, they are nuts. And I mean that in a good way and a bad way. I mean, they hang on every word this guy says. You know, he's like a fucking messiah to people. It's crazy. And I really don't think they showed that in the film. And it was sort of the same thing with Colm van Moger. I mean, they showed him trying to get like an acting gig and things like that, and it, you know, he sort of dropped the ball, similar to how Dennis Wolf did in the first movie. You know, he went in and tried to get an acting role, and it didn't work out so well, clearly. And it was sort of the same situation with Colm. You know, they had Kai Green in there, but again, they didn't really explore Kai Green's, you know, life after competition, I guess as you would call it now, as much as I think they could have. And I think what I probably would have rather have seen is them talking about actual controversies that are in the bodybuilding community right now, you know, a little more exploration of the release of women's bodybuilding altogether, you know, just completely getting rid of it, because that's kind of a big move. I mean, it was a big thing. I mean, women's bodybuilding has been around since, I want to say, at least the 60s. So, I mean, that's a long time women's bodybuilding has been around. And much like the men's bodybuilding, you know, in my opinion, it's starting to get too far. You know, we're moving away from certain criteria. It's turning into just who can be the biggest motherfucker on the stage. And it used to be, you know, who's the most muscularly developed as well as symmetrical while still looking aesthetic, you know, and it's moved away from that now. And now you've got things like the physique competitions and classic bodybuilding showing up. And they didn't even really explore classic bodybuilding at all. And I thought that would be kind of a big thing to hit on, how that's, I don't want to say replacing bodybuilding, but there's going to eventually, I think, be more fans of classic bodybuilding, or classic physique as they're calling it, than just general bodybuilding, because it's like, people want to see freaks on stage, but Arnold's still a freak. I mean, you know, Arnold in his prime anyway, was a freak. And you see these classic physique guys, and normal people don't look like that, you know what I mean? So there's a big appeal, but they still look aesthetic, I think, is the main point I'm trying to drive home. There's that controversy I was trying to talk about there, that if they can get rid of women's bodybuilding, I mean, what's stopping them from getting rid of men's bodybuilding? Or just saying you have to basically look this certain way. I mean, that's all bodybuilding really is. You know, I've talked about whether it's a sport or not, and how it's very subjective in the entirety of the premise of it. It's a subjective sport. You know, there's more than one person other than me has said that they could see actual men's general bodybuilding going away. I mean, if they can get rid of women's, what's stopping them? So, I mean, the movie, once again, it's a docudrama, just like the first one. I just feel like they only touched surface level stuff in a lot of places, and I was sort of hoping to see some people return and talk. I would have loved to see Ben Pekulski back in there, and Rolly Winkler, you know, catch up on these guys from the first movie, but they didn't really do that. I mean, if you're a fan, I recommend checking it out, but if it goes the same way that the first one did, it's probably going to be on Netflix within 6 months to a year. I would honestly say just go ahead and wait the 6 months to a year and just check it out on a free streaming service or something like that. Because I'm not saying it wasn't worth the $13 or $14, but it makes me wary of his next film and actually paying to see the next one, whatever that is. So all in all, if I had to mark it out of like 5 stars or something along those lines, I would probably give it like a 3.5, maybe a 3. Because it wasn't a bad made film. The film is well made, just like everything Vlad Yudin does. It's very well made. The cinematography is good. The camera work is good. The interviews are, thought-provoking and things of that nature. But at the end of the day, it just didn't really entertain me as much as the first one did. I would have just done the first one over again, basically, and just tried to catch up on these guys again, because that would have been just as, if not more interesting than what was presented to me in the actual film. So I do recommend you check it out if you're a bodybuilding fan. You know, if you've seen it, go ahead and just drop your opinion down below in the comments section. I really appreciate it. I'd like to hear other people's opinions. And if you don't, then what's your excuse?